Good morning, everyone. Catholic Champion, another great show. If it was going to be a bad show, I probably wouldn't even tell you that anyway. But it's going to be a good show, I promise. I'm your host, John Yepko, is Michael Hichborn. Stay tuned. We got a lot coming up. We're talking about Pope Leo and the Anglicans, assassination fallout, this crazy ballroom, and last but not least, the feds can now have access inside your car and shut it down. Another day in America, another week where we are in the fallout of an attempted assassination on the President of the United States, Michael Hichborn, his third attempt against President Trump. What were your initial thoughts?
Well, I heard about it, and of course, I wanted to see exactly what happened, make sure the president's okay, make sure the people in the room are okay. And then my next thought was, is this guy dead now and we'll never get a word out of him, or do they have him in custody? So, I had a lot of questions, but I don't know. I think that I'm not surprised that it happened, and I wasn't surprised at the time, simply because the rhetoric from the left has become so vitriolic that they are inciting this kind of behavior. And it's pretty obvious that they're doing so with the intent that people will become inflamed and think that they're, time travelers going back to 1900 to take out Adolf Hitler before he even has a chance to grow up. So,
yeah, it's Cole Allen's the guy, is the gentleman's name, the guy's name, not a gentleman. Crazy idea. He takes like a 23-hour
Teacher of the Year.
What's that?
Teacher of the Year.
Is he really Teacher of the Year? And guess what state?
It's California.
Exactly. California named Teacher of the Year. The guy writes a big old manifesto. No, I did not even try to read a skim through it. It takes like a 23-hour train trip to Chicago, then another train trip across the country. And just on its face was like really an absurd attempt. There he is. We're going to play this video a couple times. I want to talk about this video. But he attempts to run through. He's got a shotgun, a couple knives. Actually, does he not even get a shot fired off? The only person hurt was the Secret Service from friendly fire. Okay, and it's just the whole thing is weird. Honestly, it's very odd from so many angles. Just even going back to the White House Correspondents Dinner, it's the first time President Trump has ever gone to this event. This tradition of the White House Correspondents Dinner goes way back to Calvin Coolidge, I believe, or when the first time they had this, or earlier, or at least he was the first president to actually go to this event. And it's progressed over the years. It's kind of like a big deal. President Trump obviously had a big opposition to mainstream media. He essentially broke it. And then he turns around in this second year of his term and decides to go to it. Okay. And everyone who's important is there. Like, if we would have lost president of the United States, do you know this, Michael, who's going to be in charge if Trump dies? Everyone in that room dies at night. We would have had Senator Grassley, Iowa, 92 years old. He would have been charged of the United States government. So everyone was in that room at the Hilton Hotel, which is the same Hilton Hotel, by the way, that Ronald Reagan they tried to kill him in 1981. And Cole Allen. So initial thoughts about just the whole flow of that evening.
Well, I actually would like to take a look at that video real quick. Let's look at at what actually happened.
Yes.
What struck me, if we can go slowly, I don't know if you can slow the video down, but if you watch what's happening, okay, here we're going slow. You can see the guy way off in the distance. He's running. There is no reaction. There he goes running through the little metal detector. Nobody reacts until he's right on top of them.
Yeah.
And how does that happen? How does it happen that somebody running at full speed all the way down a hallway doesn't have any single Secret Service reaction until he's right on top of them? How does that happen? I would love to have an explanation for that, because if these men are supposed to be on high alert, they're supposed to be guarding the most important dignitaries in the federal government, and they can't even be bothered to be alerted to what's going on down the hallway they're supposed to be paying attention to? How does this make it make sense? Please make it make sense.
You can't make it make sense. And going back further, like we've had multiple testimonies on all different sides of the aisle too, conservative liberals who've attended that event and basically said the security was so poor. Carrie Lake had a post talking about how as they approached the venue, the security guards were like, kind of like, yeah, just show us your ID. And they kind of just waved the ID. No one really checked it. I think tickets were barely checked as well. Someone who was actually, this is a liberal reporter, was actually in the hotel room next to Cole England, like shocked that how could this guy have gotten, a shotgun in his bag in the room of the hotel with nobody checking, knowing that basically the head of this country and like the top, whatever, seven people following that afterwards, like Secretary of State, blah, 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 we're going to be there in that hotel and nobody checked him.
Where are the dogs? Where are the dogs that are supposed to be sniffing for this kind of stuff? Where was the I mean, we live in a highly advanced technological era where just about anybody can have a formula to make an explosive device. Where was anybody checking for bomb making materials in hotel rooms? Why were they holding this event after there had already been 2 previous attempts on Trump's life to begin with? Why were they holding this event in a hotel where people can check in days, weeks in advance, and remain guests in good standing with the hotel without having anybody check their security, check their luggage, check, how many of them were watching security footage of people coming and going out of the hotel, looking around to kind of scope out where things are going to be? All of this stuff it's security 101. And what I see here is not just a minor failure or a lack of training or, it's a complete and total collapse of the work that Secret Servicemen are supposed to be providing for the highest dignitaries in the United States. This is abominable.
It is. I'm glad you mentioned the dogs. Dogs are, they're their own show. These trained dogs for security, there's nothing like them. They're able to detect, smell,
hear.
What's that? Hear? Exactly.
Yeah.
Just ironic point about the Charlie Kirk assassination. The dogs were never able to find the gun when they did their inspection. The dogs can smell a gun that was fired up to like 7 days after an assassination attempt or whatever, right? And they were unable to find the gun in the woods. Okay. It wasn't until later that some low-level police officers or whatever were able to find the gun. So that's interesting that no gun was found by police dogs trained to find guns that were fired. But guns were missing on that day. The dogs, like they're not in the video. Maybe they were elsewhere, but I think it's it's a lot of holes and gaps in that situation. I think General Flynn had a really good analysis on this because this is like beyond frustrating at this point. He wrote a piece. He said, I spent over 33 years in service to this country. I've worn the uniform in war. I've sat in the rooms where the most consequential decisions about American power are made. I've watched the federal government turn its full weight against citizens and found inconvenient, including me. So when I tell you that what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner this weekend was not a random act of madness, but the predictable result of a decade of institutional failure, I am not speaking from theory. I'm speaking from the cost of it. A man walked toward the president of the U.S. with 2 firearms that intent to kill him. He was the 3rd such man in 2 years. In the wake of it, senior federal officials stepped to the microphone and told the country that the rhetoric of ordinary Americans on social media is somehow part of the cause, blaming it on us. This is misdirection. And the soldier in me, Flynn talking, recognizes the maneuver immediately. The American people are being told to look at each other when they should be looking at the institutions that allowed us to happen. In the military, when an operation fails, the after-action review is brutally honest. Commanders are named, decisions are scrutinized, and the chain of responsibility is traced from the point of failure back to the desk where the bad call was made. Nobody's permitted to walk away by gesturing the broader culture and calling it everyone else's fault. Government, however, when something goes catastrophically wrong, the first move is expand the circle of blame until the actual decision makers are invisible inside it. This is so good. Yep. Butler, the first attempted assassination, a guy with like 7 cell phones that were never able to get inside of them, crazy with all the power we have with the intelligence community. And they said, by the way, that he had remember this? Thomas Crichton had no social media footprints. The FBI told us.
Right.
So Tucker unearths and finds a whole trove of social media footprints from Thomas Crichton. And he was killed, cremated, and they sprayed off the roof. Never forgot that. A rooftop that the Secret Service did not secure, a communications failure between agencies that should not have been possible in the year 2024. Americans were told it was complicated. We were told there would be a review. We were told changes would be made. But then again, it happened in Florida. And again this weekend. 3 serious attempts in the life of a sitting or former president in less than 2 years. And not one senior official has been fired, demoted, or publicly held to account. That is an accountability problem. It's like, do you know this, Michael? The one in charge of security for the day of Charlie Kirk's death actually got promoted after that day.
Yeah, I heard.
That is an accountability problem, and the American people can see it clearly even when those in the marble buildings refuse to. When a senior official suggests that everyone is responsible for political violence, what he's effectively saying is that no one in particular will be held accountable. So the mother in Ohio, gets to the end of this, who tweeted criticism of administration policy is now standing in the same dock as the men who failed to secure the venue. The veteran in Florida who called a politician a name in a comment thread is being asked to share the moral weight of a failure belongs to federal officials who were paid to prevent it. That's not how a serious country functions. Collective guilt is what institutions reach. History is ambiguous at this point. When institutions stop holding their own people accountable, 2 things happen in sequence. First, the failures multiply because there's no longer any cost to failing. And second, the blame migrates outward to the press, to the public, to the citizen, to the neighbor, until the original failure is buried beneath the fog of national self-recrimination thick enough that no one can see the actual drop ball. Michael, what do you think about that?
Well, I think he's right in multiple respects, but I also think that the rhetoric does play a role in it. You can't just turn around and say, well, the rhetoric had nothing to do with it. It's both and. So we're talking about not just a failure of the system, but people are becoming demoralized. They've lost faith in the federal government. They've lost faith in the function of the government. They've lost faith in the mission of the government. And when people lose faith in the government, I study propaganda for a living. It's something that I've been studying since I was in high school. And when you start looking at the kind of propaganda that has been perpetrated against the American people for the last 70 years, okay, what you see is a systematic breakdown in people's faith and belief in the functionality of government. And a lot of it has to do with people's loss of faith in the office and the dignity and respect owed to the presidency. And, in the 1950s, every kid in America wanted to grow up to be president. Now, every kid in America wants to have a dartboard with the face of the president on it, right, so that they can throw darts at it. They don't care. And they look at the president as somebody to deride, not as somebody to respect. And it's partly a failure of each of the party to put forward anybody who's really and truly a dignified human being, not somebody who's just going to sit there and drool all over the stage like Joe Biden used to. So we've lost really kind of a moral grounding in the dignity of the offices of our elected officials, and a breakdown in the actual function of government, which has led people to simply believe that, well, it's every man for himself, and we have to learn how to function without these people. And in fact, these people are an obstacle to my own personal freedom, so it's best if we take them out. That's the breakdown of the mentality, which has led to this one man and 2 previous others to decide, you know what, I really need to do something about this, because the world would be better off if this guy were not in it. And that's how they're approaching things. The breakdown of the government has allowed them to believe that they can succeed in their mission, and the loss of dignity and respect that we used to have for elected officials has led them to believe that they have to be the one to do it.
You can't underestimate one of the greatest things we have in this country is faith of government. Obviously, it's been totally eroded over time, and that's intentional. Great point there. That's what they want. That's how they create chaos in a system, right? They want you to not trust and lose hope, and then revolt in one way or another. I spent time overseas, and I saw it firsthand in third world countries, just people that literally just don't trust their government. Like when I was over there, like I didn't really trust the government. Like it's chaos, right? And you see it in simple things like this. I remember going to basically like the equivalent of like a DMV, or basically a government office when you have to get your papers to be there for a certain amount of time, right? And just this whole concept of waiting in a line, okay? Waiting in line outside, okay? In the United States, by and large, if you're got to get something at the DMV or outside government office or you name it, you're going to wait in line and everyone kind of respects that order, okay? So those third world countries, like, it's like a free-for-all. It's like, and everyone, and people just break those simple things, or even like littering, okay? We take that for granted as well. Like when you don't care about your country, you're throwing trash everywhere. Go to some of the cities in Europe today. Like there's just total dumps.
Go to San Francisco.
What's that?
Go to San Francisco.
Go to San Francisco. Yeah.
They have poop maps.
I know. Exactly. And designed, weaponized chaos, communist 101. They love that. They need that. But that's something we have in our country, and it's faith in government is so key. That's why accountability is fundamental. That's why General Flynn has made, this point, like for 2026, like, look, if we don't have accountability for all these people that just went after us in the Biden administration and beyond, we're toast. It's a two-tier system of justice, which will be hard to recover from. He closes off this whole thing saying, I will say the bullet at the Correspondents' Dinner was not produced by a tweet. It was produced by a system that has not punished a single senior failure in generation. I will say this in plain English, so there's no confusion about where I stand or why. I have watched the senior leadership of agencies lie under oath, mislead Congress, leak classified material to friendly reporters, run operations against American citizens, and walk away with pensions, book deals, and cable contracts. Not one of them has paid a meaningful price, not one. I'm not bitter about this. I'm clear-eyed about it. A government that cannot punish its own most powerful failures has lost the moral authority to lecture its citizens about their tone. That is the heart of the matter, and every American who's been paying attention for the last decade already knows it in their bones. Wow.
James Comey was indicted this morning, and this was written before that, so there's one.
Will he go to jail, though? That's the thing.
Good question.
But do I think so? No, I just don't. I really don't. Will Anthony Fauci go to jail? No. I mean, it's a step. You're right. It's a step in the right direction, but there's also a lot of misdirection, a lot of fire. You get, people say, oh, indictments are coming. Like, okay. Like, Mark Hook just got $1 million from the DOJ, like last week, the pro-life father of 8 kids. You see that in Pennsylvania? He won $1 million because the FBI under Biden stormed his house, pre-dawn raid. I mean, and he almost went to jail. He went through a lot.
He was almost killed on his front lawn.
Exactly. So probably if there had been such a public outcry, and whoever the legal firm was, I think it was Thomas More Society, if they hadn't defended him, he would be in jail. So but will the same happen to people like Comey, Fauci, and others? I doubt it.
Well, that's where our faith or trust in the system kind of gets tested, isn't it?
Absolutely. Speaking of trust in the system, let's shift to different gear. And we were talking pre-show about this. You had great angle on this, and I appreciate Michael always going to the source and reading this through. So there's a big debate going on right now about the renewal of the FISA 702 form. Okay, what is FISA 702? The Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, of 1978, is a U.S. federal law that authorizes and regulates the surveillance of foreign powers and agents of foreign powers, including foreign groups engaged in international terrorism within the United States. It created a secret court called FISA that reviews government requests for warrants for electronic surveillance and physical searches. The FISA is used to acquire foreign intelligence information rather than for typical criminal investigations. And then the FISA court is a special court of federal judges created to oversee surveillance requests. It operates in secret and only hears from the U.S. government. Section 702, you hear this, FISA 702, what does that mean? It's a controversial provision that allows NSA to compel U.S. telecommunications companies. We're going to talk about this in the next topic about just the crazy big. It's real, guys. It's real. The next rule will blow your mind about the cars.
Oh gosh,
the ability to shut you down your car. So this is not like just legal talk here. A controversial provision that allows the NSA, this is Section 702, to compel U.S. telecommunications companies, so think Verizon or whatever, to provide information to non-U.S. persons located outside the U.S. But here's the catch, which often captures communications from Americans in contact with those foreign targets without a warrant. All right, so your take on this. So obviously President Trump is like, he posted whatever his original tweet was like after this assassination. For him in his mind, he's got two action items. It's number one, let's pass the FISA, let's extend it, clean extension, which they're going to vote on tomorrow, I believe. And then number two, he wants his ballroom. So what's your take on this whole FISA extension, Michael? So
I know that there are people out there who are kind of drumming up opposition to it and claiming that what this does is allow for warrantless searches against U.S. citizens, and that it's a surveillance system that's going to be put in place, or it is in place, and it's allowing for this surveillance of U.S. citizens. And the thing is, it's simply not true. That's not what FISA 702 does. That's not what it allows for. And when you I read through the actual provision, I read through 702, and I found a really good summary. I'm just going to read you some of the summary here. In 2008, Congress enacted Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Service Act, FISA, a critical intelligence collection authority that enables the intelligence community to collect, analyze, and appropriately share foreign intelligence information about national security threats. Section 702 authorizes targeted intelligence collection of specific types of foreign intelligence information, such as information concerning international terrorism or the acquisition of weapons of mass destruction, identified by the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence. So just to kind of encapsulate this, there is a very narrow set of allowances for the use of Section 702. It can only go after certain types of intelligence information, and it has to be something that's identified directly by the Attorney General and the Director of National Intelligence. So this is not something that just kind of gets rubber stamped and suddenly the FBI and the CIA and the NSA are able to start spying on U.S. citizens. That's not the way it works. Here it goes on. Section 702 only permits the targeting of non-United States persons, that's non-U.S. citizens, who are reasonably believed to be located outside the United States. So full stop. We're talking about non-citizens outside of the U.S. We're not even talking about non-citizens in the U.S. So they have to be outside the United States, and they have to be non-citizens.
But here's the thing.
Well, let me keep going because this is important. United States persons and anyone in the United States may not be targeted under Section 702. Section 702 also prohibits reverse targeting. The IC may not target a non-citizen person located outside the U.S. if the purpose of the collection is to collect information about a United States person or anyone located in the United States. So this is what Marjorie Taylor Greene and a bunch of other people are trying to raise the alarm about by claiming, oh, well, it's this backdoor way of surveillance. No, Section 702 specifically states you can't do that. So the alarms that are being raised about this, if there is really any real concern about the way it's being enacted, then the people who are enacting it contrary to what Section 702 says are doing so outside the law, which means they're breaking the law. So this is not something that is being provided by law to spy on U.S. citizens. Anybody who abuses a system of any kind and breaks the law is in violation of the law and should be prosecuted. That's how it works. That's how our legal system works.
What about this, though? So good point there. So it allows telecommunications companies to provide information which often captures communications from Americans in contact with those foreign targets without a warrant. So it's very easy. That sounds like a very broad definition to be able to say that Joe Johnson texted a friend in whatever, Finland. Okay. And somehow the FBI said, well, you're remotely connected in, on a pattern of people. Therefore, because you randomly got a text message or you're on a group thread message with like 30 other people with this guy who has kind of remote ties in Finland to maybe a terrorist organization, therefore the FBI can shift the entire direction towards Joe Johnson, who's on a group text message with someone in Finland, and they go after him without a warrant. So I think that's the whole point that they're making. And that for me is like, whoa, I see. I mean, that's the loophole. That's the loophole right there.
Okay.
That they end up being able to target American citizens because you're in contact. It's such a broad definition.
So let me read to you this portion of the summary that actually addresses that. It says, although all Section 702 targets must be non-U.S. citizen persons, reasonably believed to be located outside of the United States, Congress has always recognized that such targets may send an email or have a phone call with a United States person. For this reason, Section 702 requires specific procedures to minimize the acquisition, retention, and sharing of any information concerning U.S. persons. Minimize, however, does not always mean eliminate. If, for example, a foreign terrorist indicated that a United States person was a key member of an ongoing terrorist plot, this information would be appropriately shared to allow the FBI to take further investigative steps. Congress also amended Section 702 to require specific procedures to ensure the querying of any Section 702 acquired information is consistent with the Fourth Amendment. So again, it already addresses this. It's already got procedures in place. We have in the United States with police procedure, probable cause. So if there is something that is collected in foreign intelligence where they see that somebody from the outside the United States, a foreign agent, has contacted a United States citizen and is in communication with them, and it seems that this is in direct relation to something that is illegal, terrorist threat, weapons of mass destruction, that kind of thing, now they have probable cause. But just because they have a phone call about his cat doesn't allow for probable cause, which means they can't investigate further. And there's congressional oversight over the whole thing anyway. So again, what people are raising the alarm about is counter to what Section 702 already has in its provisions.
Fair enough. Good point. So in theory, basically they have congressional oversight to make sure that, if you need to flip the gun on your own American citizen because he's somehow tied to some dude in Finland who's tied to another random person who's connected with terrorism, there's in theory very specific things in the 702 which would make sure you're doing it the right way, and also congressional oversight. Here's the problem, and this is where I understand it. Like, look, we're talking about, we just got done with with Flynn's point about the whole, there's just no accountability. Okay. And again, President Trump, which is so ironic, he himself talks about this. The FBI used FISA to wiretap Trump campaign advisor Carter Page and recorded Page and George Papadopoulos before warrants were even issued. Okay. So obviously that was a tremendous abuse.
Absolutely. And he should be prosecuted for going outside the provision of the law.
But 100%, and this is where if you don't have a moral republic or moral citizenry, good luck having a republic. It's impossible. Okay. No amount of police or oversight or holding people. I mean, you got to have people who are moral. We just don't have that, especially probably in our intelligence communities. So well, they should be held accountable. The FBI. When was that? Was that last year? Was that maybe 2 years ago? That was 10 years ago in 2016. Has anybody gone to jail because of that? No. So it's here we are in 2026 where they want a reauthorization and there'll be oversight 3 years later that they're going to have a congressional hearing and there'll be a strongly worded letter coming from the Congress saying bad you, shouldn't do that. And then they bring the FBI director in there. He tries to explain, and it's a lame explanation, but no one's held accountable. So here we are, the American people, I think, and I can understand what she's saying, though I appreciate what Michael, your analysis. In theory, it should not happen, but then we all know it's going to happen. And we also know probably there will be no accountability. I'm like, forget it, right? I don't know.
If we get to the point where we're going to ignore the rule of law and we're going to ignore the parameters of the provisions of law, then we don't really have a republic, and we certainly don't have a system of laws, and it doesn't really matter anyway. You have to understand the way the left works. The left doesn't care about the law. They only care about the acquisition and the use of power. That's it. So if they are in power, they don't care about the law. They don't care what the law says. They're going to use whatever powers they have against anybody that they perceive to be their enemies, and they're going to use those powers to the fullest extent. We saw that with the persecutions and prosecutions against Donald Trump during the 4 years that Joe Biden was in office. Mm-hmm. Okay. That was way outside the boundaries of law, and they were abusing their power to a massive extent. But as you point out, nobody's been held to account. Right. Nobody's been thrown in jail. And of course, any attempt to hold these people accountable is now being called abuse of power and political targeting, which is ridiculous and absurd on the face of it. But this is where we are. And this is what we have to understand. Anything that exists in the federal government is going to be used against us, anybody that is perceived to be an enemy, by the left. It doesn't matter if it's legal, illegal. The left is, if they have the power, they're going to use it. When we are on the right and we have the ability to prosecute such people who step outside the law, we have a moral obligation and a duty to use that real and fully appropriated law to its extent and say, these people have to be held to account because they broke the law. So right. Just because the law exists doesn't mean that the law needs to be abrogated because somebody is going to abuse it. That's the wrong way to look at it.
Fair enough. Yeah, it's almost like before you give more freedom to the government, like they have to show that they're responsible enough to use it.
Well, define the government. I mean, we decapitate our government every 4 years. Yeah. So you're talking about
we do and we don't. Uh-huh. Like we vote him out of power, but here's Charlie Kirk had this great point. He's like, look, there is like a system that just perdures in past elections. It's like the same ruling class of people that are in Washington, right? That never change, right? Mm-hmm. You know, it's like not if Trump's elected or a Republican or Democrat, you know, probably 80% of the DOJ stays there. Okay. Right. Or, you know, so it's a risk, and I don't know. And considering our next story, I'm even more uneasy to let them have this FISA access. Like even go back to the Central Intelligence Agency, their mandate is to operate completely outside the United States.
Oh yeah.
Does anybody really think that they fulfill that mandate and operate just outside the U.S.?
We know that the CIA was conducting secret experiments on U.S. citizens in the 1950s and 60s through Project MK Ultra, where they were giving U.S. citizens clandestine doses of LSD. So
FBI or CIA?
That was CIA.
CIA. Yep.
That was CIA.
Exactly. MK Ultra, 100%. So yes, that's why we got to be speaking up. That's our last ability is to speak up. It's freedom of speech and freedom of religion, two core Bill of Rights. Speaking of freedom of speech, let's go to this story. We have this Biden kill switch in your cars. Like you won't believe this. Like you're driving a car, and very soon the government will have the ability to shut down your car. Okay. The vehicle kill switch may be getting another chance to be killed in Congress this week as a member of the House Rules Committee wants to repeal legislation that directs automakers to install surveillance technology on all new vehicles starting in 2027. Chip Roy from Texas, a committee member and influential congressman on the conservative House Freedom Caucus, says the Biden era mandate poses a direct amendment to our Fourth Amendment rights.
Yep.
Republicans should not be continuing a blatantly invasive Biden era policy, blah, blah, blah. So it goes on. And let me just get to the gist of this. The government should never have the ability to remotely kill your car or anything else you own. Self-told the Daily say, no, when a group of conservatives in the House try to repeal this Joe Biden era mandate set to take effect next year, 57 Republicans teamed up with 211 Democrats to stop that. That's unacceptable. Let's just play that video from and kind of show you exactly what's going to happen to the guy with the Ford truck.
No. Now imagine there was an emergency outside the truck, an accident, something terrible on the ranch with a chainsaw. And I jump in this truck, but the truck, it won't shift into drive. Why? Because the cameras and sensors inside this cab won't let it shift, because it detects my eyes are big, there's a lot of emotion, there's some panic, and it doesn't feel that I'm fit to drive. Now that's not science fiction, that is happening because Ford just filed the patents. Ford actually has a series of patents down at the U.S. Patent and Trade Office that deal with the sensors and cameras inside the cab of their truck. And if the sensors in that truck determine that you're not fit to drive, that truck will not actually shift from park to drive. Now, they already have a system called telematics, and that's where they can actually pull up cameras in real time inside the cab of their fleet vehicles. Now, they actually market this to insurance companies because the truth is, this is really about who owns the data and who owns the liability. Now, your name might actually be on the title of this truck, and you may have paid for it, but you don't own it. Now, Ford didn't file just one patent. They filed a stack of them, all within months of each other. Are you sitting down? Get this. This Ford technology patent doesn't just watch you. This one puts you in jail. Ford filed a patent, serial number 0104469, where the system takes your biometric data, your face, your iris, and your fingerprint, and it runs it through a criminal database in real time. While you're sitting in your own truck, think about what that means. You wake up one morning, you walk out to your driveway, you climb into a vehicle with your name on the title, on property with your name on the deed. And before you go anywhere, before you've done a single thing wrong, your truck is already running your face through a law enforcement database. Ford's own patent language describes this as potentially useful for police. They wrote that. Ford wrote that into the patent application. So the question isn't whether this technology can be abused. Ford already told you who it's for. You just didn't know that you were buying a cop car. Now I'm going to walk you through a few of these patents. Lip reading, cameras inside your cab, machine learning trained on lip movement data sets.
Whoa. Michael, what is going on with this?
Well, it's the surveillance state that has always been predicted by futurists since the very early 19th century or 20th century, the very early 20th century. That we've had movie after movie after movie about AI and the dangers of AI and artificial intelligence ruling society and controlling everything that we do. They've been warning us for over 100 years, and now we're surprised that it's happening. I'm not. I mean, your car with the little red dash cam light is going to say, "I'm sorry, Dave, I can't let you drive today." You know, how shocking is this? It's been in the works for so long that it's not surprising in the least.
What is surprising is the amount of Republicans that are voting with this. That's
Yes.
why when you use the word left now, or at least for me, I no longer just equate that with the Democrats, right?
Oh yeah.
The left is like anybody who's not a God-fearing patriot who's just willing to stand up and be brave and courageous. Yep. Okay. Because are we kidding me? That's why it's so fake. Sometimes this whole, are you GOP, are you Democrat, or like, we got to win the midterms. Okay, we do, but like, it's so above that. Like, are we gonna have GOP that's actually going to stand up? Like, I don't want this. Do you want to be driving and they have the ability just to shut down your car like this? Yeah. Because are we? Let's keep playing that video because it talks about lip reading even as well, and audio, being able to listen to what you're saying in the car.
as long as they want. Acoustic lip reading, if the cameras aren't enough, the system emits inaudible sound waves and reads the echoes bouncing off of your mouth. You can't see it, it's just happening. Biometrics, your face, fingerprint, iris, filed February 2024, and it was published August 2025. This one is assigned a serial number because it's real. Ad listening. This is scary. It monitors conversations between everyone in the cab. It serves targeted ads based on what you and others are talking about while you're driving. In Ford's words, maximum opportunity for ad-based monetization. No description of how that data is protected either. None. How about
All
Ford
right.
Pro telematics? Now, this one isn't a
I
patent.
can't take any more of this. Just do you realize also why the Catholic Church is so important for society? Okay, obviously it's the one true church. We offer this, provide the 7 sacraments, which is what you need to get to heaven. Okay, but on a more practical note, the Catholic Church, with all of its teaching, with all of its 2,000-year history, take it to the bank that apart from the bad examples that there are in the church, she will be there to defend the rights of people, right? Because every human life is sacred from the womb to the tomb and beyond. And so here we are as Catholics have to be speaking up, because this is an invasion against the rights of people that our founding fathers fought against. I mean, what else do you have to say to this, Michael?
Well, I mean, we already have that full surveillance technology right here. Your phone is listening all the time. And what it's doing is it's recording conversations and using those conversations in order to make targeted ads. Did you know that your phone emits ultra red or what is it? Not ultraviolet, but the other side of the spectrum, the infrared. It has infrared dots that projects on your face to do face recognition. It already does that. It has fingerprint scanning technology already integrated into your phone. So all of those things that the Ford company is trying to do is simply echoing what we've already allowed the surveillance state to do. Right. And we're doing this willingly. We're carrying around these little personal recording devices that are that's taking our data, taking our information, and sharing it with God knows who. And if we want to take back our country, yes, it's terrible that Ford is filing these patents, that they're putting them in the car and locking down your car with the provision that, goodness, you're a criminal, or gosh, I think that you're impaired, or maybe I don't think you deserve to drive today. That's
social credit score, right? Social credit.
Exactly. That's where it's going. That's where it's going. But we're doing it willingly. It's piecemeal. It's not something that's being imposed on us from the government. It's something that's being purchased from us by companies, and they're buying our freedom, and we're giving it to them willingly. Every time you go to the phone store and you buy a new one of these devices, you're simply selling your own personal freedom.
That's right. I saw a video from China. Someone going to the grocery store, and the amount of checks that he has to do to go through with his car, secure checkpoints, cameras that are on him. It's like they're living in a totally godless society where the government tries to be God. They want to know everything about you. They want to control you. They are not God. And this is happening right on our doorsteps. And some of these GOP people that we fought so hard to get to Congress are now betraying.
It's disgusting that they're supporting this.
It absolutely is. So speak about this. Get this out. Get the word out. Address this. I'm glad it got 28 million views, at least on that one post alone. So people are not happy, nor should they be. Shifting over to our odd ballroom. This is kind of a mystery to me a little bit here. So President Trump has been talking about doing on the East Wing of the White House to expand it, to make a ballroom where he could have public events, et cetera, et cetera. He is a great designer. What he did in places like Mar-a-Lago, it's a beautiful place. He has a track record for that. So in some ways you understand that. But what's kind of getting people a lot of asking questions a little bit is, it's been held up in the courts, right? But then after the assassination attempt, Trump was pushing the extension of FISA, hardcore, let's extend the FISA, and get my ballroom built, okay? Which on its face is look, I want a secure location to have people. That's why we should have it secure. But I think they even reference like so that the White House Correspondents Dinner could be held there, but it just doesn't even match because typically the White House Correspondents Dinner has about 3,200 people. This ballroom would fit like 1,000 people, so that wouldn't even be a possibility. But going deeper is it's not just a ballroom that's being built. Okay, there is some sort of a military underground facility that is being tied to it as well. That's not me being a conspiracy theorist. It's Lindsey Graham talking. Let's play that clip from Lindsey, and you could hear it for yourself, what he has to say.
Introduce legislation that would authorize $400 million to be spent to secure to build the presidential ballroom. Underneath, there will be a lot of military stuff. There will be a Secret Service annex. And we've paid for it by offsetting it with custom fees. But the estimate is $332 million. We're going to do $400 million because I think it's probably going to take more. Private donations can be used, but I think they should be used for buying China and stuff like that. Underneath this ballroom will be infrastructure that is national security centric. The ballroom itself will avoid the dilemma of having to leave the White House grounds with future presidents and this president's to go downtown in a place that's less secure. President Trump said to me yesterday, we need the ballroom not just for me but for future presidents. He literally could have left his bedroom, walked out the back of the White House, and been at the ballroom. That's what needs to happen when you have 1,000 or 2,000 people gathered in today's environment. And the sooner we get the ballroom built, the more hardened it is, the better for the country. So I hope and pray that most people in the Senate after Saturday night will support this bill.
We don't believe you, Lindsey Graham. I'm sorry. Like, if you're the one up there advocating for the ballroom, okay, don't believe you. We don't believe that you have the best interests of the American people in there. You have done so much damage to America by your constant intention and passion to get America into a new war, and we've seen it. Your people in South Carolina have suffered because of it, and it's yeah. I mean, what else? What do you have to say to that, Michael?
Well, I don't know what he's talking about. And here's what I mean by that is I don't know what he means when he says military stuff. Now, it makes sense to me that if you're going to have a ballroom attached to the White House, that there would be a central command, a basement, a central command or some kind of barracks for Secret Service agents to operate from so that they can maintain security of the entire facility. That makes sense to me. But when you start talking about conducting intelligence operations, now what are you talking about? What right. Intelligence operations are you talking? I mean, we already have an NSA headquarters. We already have a CIA headquarters. Is he talking about some sort of command center that would be attached to the White House? I thought we already had one. So I don't know what he means. So whatever we believe is kind of moot. And I don't want to speculate what he means. I want him to spell it out. I want him to tell us exactly, point by point. I want a bulleted list, an itemized list of exactly what he's talking about will be spent on this particular facility. Because if it's already being constructed for $380 million, and I don't know why it's costing that much, but if it's already being built for $380 million, what is U.S. taxpayer funding going towards, and why? If we're going to talk about using U.S. taxpayer money, itemize the list for me and show me exactly what it is that we're paying for, because I don't want to pay for something that I'm not told what I'm paying for. I want to know. Go ahead and spell it out for me. I don't want to go through another Obamacare debacle where Nancy Pelosi tells me, well, you're going to have to pass it to see what's in it. No, thanks.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Rick Scott had more to say on this. He's pushing back on the proposal to spend as much as $400 million in taxpayer money to build the ballroom, arguing obviously we're in debt, 39 trillion in debt. So why do this? He supports construction of the White House ballroom, but he doesn't want taxpayers to pay for it. So it's President Trump, on the other hand, initially planned to pay for the construction of the ballroom, which will replace the White House's former East Wing with private donations. But now a group of GOP senators led by Graham is pushing the bill to authorize $400 million to build a ballroom along with an underground military facility and a Secret Service annex in the case of national emergency. Graham and his partners, including Katie Britt from Alabama, Eric Schmidt, would offset the cost of the project with national park user fees and custom fees. Underneath it will be a lot of military stuff. There will be Secret Service annex, and we pay for it by offsetting it with custom fees, right? We just heard that clip. Senate Republicans announced their plan to ask for a vote on the legislation to authorize $400 million for Trump's project after a suspect tried to kill him at the Saturday night dinner. I don't know. I don't buy it. What makes me nervous too is the private donors are involved with this. Like there's 37 White House ballroom donors funding the $400 million build. Includes a lot of the Silicon Valley tech giants, crypto brothers, and the Lutnicks. Howard Lutnick, who's the Secretary of Treasury, is famous for living next door to Jeffrey Epstein in New York.
Yep.
And also it came out in the Epstein files that he literally, think about this. You're a dad with a kids, and you decide that for your vacation, let's get a picture of Howard Lutnick on the screen. One maybe where he's standing next to Trump because Trump has him very close to him. Howard Lutnick, Secretary of Treasury, decides that this is after, by the way, Epstein had already been indicted or like taken to had legal trouble. So they knew what was going on. Okay. And yet he thinks it's a great idea to take his kids on a vacation to Epstein Island. Make that make sense. Okay. So he is one of the funders of this White House ballroom. Do you think that's the Howard Lutnick basically just out of the kindness of his heart making a donation to the Trump administration because he wants to support good and noble causes? Something smells really bad. What do you think, Michael?
No, I think that there's a lot of oddities about this whole thing.
There is.
But again, I can't speculate on what's actually going on because I don't have enough facts. I really don't know what his intentions are, and I don't know what Lindsey Graham's intentions are. And if there is something strange taking place, I'd be very interested in somebody, providing me with some tangible evidence to show that something very odd is happening. But in the meantime, we can speculate and we can guess, but it's not going to serve anybody until we actually have something to look at.
Quid pro quo. That's how it works in government. There's not donation to government, right? Mary Nadelson gives $250 million to the Trump administration is not just a love America. In fact, she doesn't even love America as a primary country. She loves Israel first. Trump said it to her, very public about this. Quid pro quo. That's how it works. So what is behind this? We were going to kind of do a potential theory about this, but I'm holding off till I get more facts on this about what maybe this underground facility is all about. So maybe we'll pick it up next week after we've done some more research to make sure we're reporting accurately or talking about things that are legit. But hold that thought. More in the ballroom, hopefully later. And then switching gears to last but not least, we go over to Rome, the Holy Father. Michael, can you explain to me why on Sunday I saw images of in the Clementine Chapel, okay, which is the chapel right it's in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. It's hard to get down there. You have to have a special ticket. You go there and it's right next to literally the bones of St. Peter. Okay. And I saw an image of a woman dressed as a bishop. She's giving a blessing and there's a Catholic bishop blessing himself, receiving the blessing from this woman. Is this an AI image, Michael? What happened?
It's not AI. It's a woman posing as a bishop. She's cosplaying as a bishop, showing up in the Vatican, and she's being treated as if she actually has.
No, it's not AI. Are you kidding me? It's legit. Oh no,
it's legit. Yeah. So, I mean, you just go back to the video. Go back to the beginning of the video. Okay, I want to see this again. Okay, here we go. Pause right there. You have her giving what looks like a formal blessing from the authority as a bishop. You got an actual bishop receiving the blessing. So he's crossing himself as she is blessing everybody else in attendance. This is I don't even have a word for this, but it's a betrayal. It's a betrayal of the truth, and they are harming her just as much as they are harming every single Catholic and Anglican watching this, because now they're giving the impression that she actually has apostolic authority when she doesn't. They're playing along. It's as bad as playing along with a transgender guy who dresses as a woman. Just as bad, because now you're saying that she is something that she is not, or you're at least giving the impression that you are playing along that she is something that she is not. The truth is not served here. It's not served for anybody. And in fact, the truth is being murdered, which is the real ultimate problem here. They are murdering the truth.
It's going back to when we started Catholics for Catholics. One of the initial impetus that we had was seeing the amount of Catholic politicians who would receive communion and not be addressed because of it, while they were holding to manifest grave sin, as canon law states. And just like the thought of like, is someone going to speak up? Like, this is our faith, okay? Like, do we believe this stuff or do we not? That's right. If her right to her right, you walk in and you can literally see from maybe like a distance of like 6 feet away the actual bones of St. Peter. I've been there so many times on tours, and St. Peter, the guy that Jesus Christ used to found the church, on those sacred grounds, you have a mockery of the priesthood itself, right? Because she's not a priest. She's not.
Right.
And I don't know, there's been no apology, no nothing. And okay, what about this? She goes on and she meets with Pope Leo, and comment on that, Michael.
Okay, so she meets with Pope Leo. Of course, they have a conversation, and look at this. She's decked out in clerical garbs. Pause right here. Okay. She is decked in clerical garb with the Pope. And it's just as bad as if a man had approached the Holy Father wearing a dress and a long beard and demanded that the Holy Father address him as a woman. This is just how bad this situation is. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, well, this is
worse. Is it just as bad, or is it actually worse? Because when it's
theologically worse.
Yeah, because one is an insult to the natural law. This is an insult to the divine law.
Yes.
So it's worse.
Yes. So, you have now this situation where he's playing along, and people are calling it, it's diplomatic courtesy. Diplomatic courtesy does not mean ignoring the truth. Diplomatic courtesy does not mean pretending to play along with somebody's lie. That's not diplomatic courtesy. That is actually, it's just what it is. It's a lie. I want to point something else out. If we can bring up the EWTN article here, I want to show a couple of things that stood out big time to me just from this EWTN article about this event. As soon as we get it up, I'll point this out. So I think we're just about to get it. Here we go. Okay. So if we look right at the headline, Pope Leo XIV meets Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm sorry. No, he didn't. He didn't meet with an archbishop. The headline itself is a lie. Archbishop of Canterbury. No, he did not meet with an archbishop. Okay. So this is a very serious problem. And then in just the subhead, it says the pontiff addressed new problems facing Catholic Anglican dialogue in his meeting with Archbishop, capitalized A, Archbishop Sarah Mullally, the first woman to serve as spiritual head of the Anglican Communion. She's not an archbishop. Stop giving her a title that does not belong to her. Why are we playing along? This doesn't serve any good for anyone. And EWTN, which is a good news source, is playing along with this lie. I can't get over the fact that this is even a thing. It's just, it's really bad. So you go down further in the article, and of course, the Pope Leo is talking about how we now have a more difficult path to full communion. But where does he talk about the fact that she is not an archbishop? Where is his concern for her soul? Where is his concern for the fact that she is pretending to be something that she is not, that she advocates for ideologies such as same-sex blessings, and she has called herself pro-choice in the past? Where's his concern for her soul for advocating for ideologies that are completely contrary to God's divine law, completely contrary to the moral law, completely contrary to the natural law? But no, he's talking about dialogue and how we need to come together and work together, and hopefully we can find communion in some way, shape, or form. Stop. This is nonsense. You're not going to find communion until they convert fully to the Catholic faith. End of story. That's the only path to real communion. So this path to communion, path to dialogue, enough. It's nonsense. It hasn't worked for the last 100 years, and it's got to end.
Or it has worked.
Only if we're talking about reverse conversion.
This is the whole thing with synodality, right? And people smarter than me and higher up in the hierarchy have sounded the alarm on what this is all about, right? We obviously published a book called Trojan Horse, the attempt to invert the hierarchy of the church and reverse the moral order. And what we see is basically it's turning into this Anglican form of church where it's let the people decide. Let's hear from the people what they want to do, what they want to change. And it's not even a true democracy because they already have premeditated results that they want after doing their surveys. Right. And then they achieve this, it's a fundamental change of the church's structure. Right. And the result of what they've done with the Anglicans for the past 200 years is that what you see right now. You now have a woman who is the head of the church, right? Church, right? Lowercase c. And now they're meeting in Rome. I'm all for, and I'm going to get this, hopefully this clip from John Paul II, give you perspective. What he did when he ran into somebody that was totally in opposition to what the church taught. Okay. Should the Pope, as a vicar of Christ, meet with people? Of course he should. He should definitely meet with sinners. Christ did it himself. We should all meet with sinners. I'm a sinner, right? But it's how it's portrayed. You got to be so careful. Going back to that image of the Holy Father meeting with Father James Martin, okay, the Vatican back in September. He never released a statement after that, the Vatican, about what this meeting was about or what they thought. Okay, of course, Father Martin did what he always does, and he basically went and said the Pope has confirming my ministry. Well, your ministry is heretical and it's destroying souls. So it's, if you're going to meet with a very public, someone who's a manifest grave sinner, there's got to be clarification about what this is. Or going back to David Axelrod 2 weeks ago, right? You meet with a key Obama strategist in the wake of a huge contingent of very heretical cardinals, basically in our own United States, Tobin, McElroy, and Zupich, trying to destroy everything about the Trump administration for what he's doing, which is clear. They want to take away the strong Catholics away from the GOP vote. So, Holy Father, please, we love you. We pray for you. We want so badly for you to be a great shepherd for the church. We know you have a tough job, but please give your sheep some clarity. If we have that clip from JP2, no, it was a
photograph of him. He was wagging his finger at Ernesto Cardenal.
There you go.
From Nicaragua.
Central America, like it was in Panama. I want to say this.
Nicaragua.
There's like a video. Nicaragua. A producer's going to pull this up. And this is what John Paul II kind of arrives to Central America in the 1980s. It was during liberation theology was going rampant, and priests were basically using the church for a political end. Okay. And there was a priest who wanted a photo op with this later to be saint of the Church, the Vicar of Christ, and he thought, I'm in position. I'm going to go. I'm going to get my blessing. I'm going to kiss his ring. Okay. Total bonus points if we get the video, but look at him right there. JP2, John Paul II, was like, not buying this. Okay. And he proceeds just to scold him. He wags his finger at him and doesn't buy it. And it was great. It was a really good, that's a priest who's kneeling down trying to get the photo op.
Yep. Yeah. Ernesto Cardenal was he was a liberation theologian. He was also a Marxist. So, and you know, he was a priest sort of, but then he joined the Nicaraguan Revolution. And, yeah, that's really what you have here is him trying to get a photo op to justify liberation theology, but Pope John Paul II recognized him. And that's why he was castigating him right there.
Casting him in public. The video, if you ever get the video, is like he wags his finger and he's giving very, very strong words. I think we got it here. And JB2 obviously talks in Spanish, which is just great. Addresses him, and you know, you juxtapose that with some of previous images of pontiffs. So you obviously have Pope Francis, who called one of the pro-abortion activists in Italy one of the great heroes, right?
Yeah.
It's
you know, going back to what we saw taking place in Rome, Pope Leo had time to send an entourage to give a full dignitary or dignified tour of the Vatican, giving her the ability to give a blessing down there by the bones of Saint Peter. He had time to have a private meeting with her and a photo op, and to even have, you know, night prayer, Vesper.
Here's the clip, man.
Yeah, there's the video.
Here we go. He's doing the rounds. This is great.
There's Ernesto.
Parmi la délégation qui était venue l'accueillir, du père Ernesto Cardenal, ministre de la Culture. D'abord de la surprise, suivi de ce geste de réprimande alors que le père Cardenal est à genoux. En fait, vous le savez, ce dernier n'aurait pas dû être là puisque le pape avait demandé à nous rencontrer les patrons catholiques.
Thank God for John Paul II. Yeah, keep going.
So, you know, so the Pope has time to pray with her, to meet with her, to get a photo op with her, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But he has no time to meet with the SSPX.
Yes.
He has no time to sit down with actual Catholics who are trying to remain within the Catholic faith, who are trying to remain in good standing with the Pope. He has no time to meet with them. He has no time to try
give that context. Give the SSPX thing context. What's going on there quickly?
Earlier this year, the SSPX announced, after 7 years of trying to get meetings and to try and have communication, they announced that they're going to go ahead and consecrate a new group of bishops. And suddenly, after almost no communication with the dicastery for the doctrine of the faith or with the papacy, all of a sudden the dicastery of the doctrine of the faith, Cardinal Victor Fernandez, has a sudden interest in talking to the SSPX and says, oh, I'd be happy to sit down with you, and I'd be happy to meet with you and dialogue and please just don't do this. He didn't threaten excommunication, but he simply strongly said, don't do this. Here's the problem. They could still talk. Pope Leo could invite the SSPX to come talk to him. They could have a conversation. They could try and hash out their differences and try and figure out, you know, what the path forward is. Something they've been trying to do for 7 years. But the Vatican doesn't seem to have time. No, they've got time to parade around a woman cosplaying as a bishop and to have her give fake blessings from the bones of St. Peter and to lead Pope Leo in prayer during Vespers. I'm sorry, this is completely bass-ackwards. It's upside down. And if the church is to go out and provide the sacrament, what is the mission of the church? The salvation of souls. How does she do it? Through the provision of the sacraments and through preaching the gospel. Those are the two aspects of the one mission of the church. That's it.
That's right.
All this talk about immigration and climate change and in the economy and international politics, that's nonsense. It's all the wind in the waves. It has nothing to do with the actual mission of the church. Maybe it can touch on it because sometimes theology and morality play a part in something along those lines. But the primary mission is being completely ignored. And now they're engaged in stupid, insipid international or interfaith dialogues. To what end? To what end? And in the meantime, they're throwing good, faithful Catholics who have a desire to remain in communion with the one true faith. They're throwing them to the wolves and saying, you know what? You belong out in the cold. We hate you. I can't get over that. It's completely upside down. And I will dare say it's evil.
It's a pattern. We saw this in the previous pontificate with the Dubia cardinals. 4 cardinals: Burke, Cafara, and Brandon Mueller, and one other,
Brand Mueller,
who tried to address with Pope Francis concerns about Amoris Laetitia and asked to meet with him. They never ever received that response back. Like, let's meet, okay? And they waited 5 years, and Pope Francis obviously died. So, not good. We got to pray for the church. We got to run here. I know Michael got to go, so I'm going to stick around for just some questions really quick. Michael, thanks for your time, and we'll see you next week. And I'll give the audience a couple minutes here to ask for questions.
Roger that. God bless you all.
Thanks, Michael. Appreciate it. The just like I think, and keep in mind, I'm going to ask the audience for prayers too as well, because we have a couple events going on this week. We have Friday, we're launching the start of our Catholic Champion Crusade in Tennessee. Okay, this is the desire for us just to go out, literally to engage with the young people of America. That's the future. Like, there's a lot of corruption going on. There's a lot of stuff in DC or whatever. We know it. We get it. Okay, but the futures are young people, and the most important thing is that people know the faith. Okay, so we're taking our team right there to the University of Tennessee in Knoxville, and we will have our first Catholic Champion Crusade. To basically, let's start off with a topic. A local Catholic priest will give a talk on a Catholic theme, which we have. It's going to be a hot topic. We already know this with the students. And then we give them time for questions. They can answer, fire back at us on whatever. And then we'll end it with a patriotic rosary. Okay. And then we, of course, will have opportunities for people to sign up right there on the spot for OCIA if they're interested in becoming Catholic, so that we can direct these people to the local church. That, at the end of the day, is our mission. Okay. The best thing America can have are Catholic patriots, right? We need that for the salvation of souls. Let's see, any questions coming up here. It's clear that both political parties have been corrupted with foreign funding, so it's hard to trust if they're acting for America. How can we vote with a clear conscience? Primaries are so important. I mean, for one thing as well, because primaries which are going on right now are when we can really distinguish between those GOP people are going to sell us out and those people are going to actually be true to their word, okay? I mean, how can we vote with a clear conscience? At the end of the day, we're in a party system with 2 parties, 2 choices, right? So there is a lesser of 2 evils. There really is, right? And I do believe that. I do believe President Trump was obviously the clearer of the options back. And so he's done a lot of good. So that's how as in my conscience, I justify that. And I also continue to justify my decision by speaking up when President Trump, who I do love, is doing things that are like not with what he said he was going to be, like the Iran war. We have to speak up. Otherwise it's like a cult. So that's how I get around that with a clear conscience. There's on a positive note, there's a congressman named John Frankman. He's running for Congress in Florida District 1. And he's a good Catholic, and he committed yesterday, like, I'm not taking any AIPAC funding at all. No funding from Israel. I'm doing America first, because I know how much that just thwarts my vision. Let's take another question if there is one here. Private donors for ballroom and security facility of the White House. Very sketchy. What are these donors getting for their money? Exactly. Kelly Lamb. Agreed. What are they getting? What's the quid pro quo? Again, we had something. We were going to talk about it. I want to do more research to make sure that this is legit. It has to do with Palantir, but how they might be involved with this private ballroom. But more on that later. People don't give checks just for giving checks usually. Okay. It's very few like true pro bono, like just out of charity of their heart that they do it for. So you're right to ask the questions. Any politicians receiving AIPAC funds will not receive my vote. Yeah. Good. Awesome. We got to push that. Okay. Like, look, ever see the chart of the United States Congress, the amount of politicians who are receiving money from AIPAC, which is obviously, it's like, think about it like as a nonprofit operating here in the United States, which gives money to politicians to ensure that they will support Israel. Well, the problem is that we've gotten into a lot of trouble being focused on them over the United States, the current war. I believe Joe Kent, former director of counterterrorism, who resigned. We had him at our conference. I interviewed him on stage when he said, like, look, we got in this war because Israel wanted us. It wasn't our desire. It wasn't our interest. They have different goals than us. So we suffered because of it. Another question. Why aren't they going after the COVID criminals? Why repeat? Exactly. The COVID criminals, the people, the injections, the shots. Absolutely. There's criminals or people broke the law with this promotion of this vaccine. But then there's also the moral authorities, our bishops who went on videos, and Pope Francis did a video with like Archbishop Gomez talking about how he used act of charity to get the vaccine. Well, now that you know all the information, an apology video would be wonderful to have, considering how many people are suffering today because of these COVID shots. Another question. We need to start electing America first people in the government. The right and the left, as it is now, are filled with non-Christians that are in office to solely help our greatest. Exactly. We completely agree with it. And we're going to talk about that actually with the students this week at the University of Nashville or University of Tennessee, because they want to hear about this, and they're intrigued. There's like an intrigued spirit that they have with how the Catholic Church has a beautifully defined doctrine on what Zionism is. It's actually been a great portal for people having interest in the faith, right? There's an election integrity expert that I'm very close to in the country that is currently not Catholic, but he told me like 2 weeks ago. He's like, look, I'm actually interested in becoming Catholic or learning more about your faith. Why? I said, why? Is it the Eucharist? Is it our music? Is it the Pope? Like, no, it's like you guys have a very strong teaching on Zionism, and my own church has been very quiet about this. And I love America, but my church is speaking up. You guys are. So I'm interested in the Catholic faith. Cool stuff. Maybe one more question. To all, we must remember that the one Holy Catholic Apostolic Church was created by our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. She can be injured but never destroy. The church is the pathway. That's an awesome way to end it. Like, guys, as many of you have, I've seen a lot of bad stuff in the church before. I was a seminarian and went through a lot. I was a legionary of Christ and, really suffered because of it. But thanks be to God, I never left the church. We can never leave the faith. We have the Eucharist. Like, you guys can go to a local parish right now and receive Jesus Christ. Like, how awesome is that? We have our Blessed Mother. We have the saints. We have the relics of the saints. We're going to bring some of these relics to these college students on Friday. We're going to offer confession, okay? Yeah, we're going to have a priest right there standing and say, hey, anybody who wants to go to confession right here, right now, you can be reunited with Jesus Christ. That's the Catholic Church. Who in the right mind would ever want to leave this church? I don't care how bad there are of examples. And by the way, I'm a bad example. We're all a bad examples. Every time we sin, we hurt the mystical body of Christ. Questions here are amazing. But what about the canon law that imprisons people for quoting the Bible? Sean asked that question. I'm not too familiar with that. I've heard similar stuff about that. I know that there was somebody in Iceland, I think it was, who was put in prison for also quoting the Bible. Yeah, that's a problem. Okay. And, if Western civilization is going after people who quote the Bible, we're in a bad spot. Okay. So let's end it with that. Here's one. Can we throw that tweet up on about Our Lady Guadalupe? Like, end on a positive note here. If y'all ever go to Mexico, see Our Lady Guadalupe, which is like the greatest apparition potentially in church history, you'll go there and there's a forgotten little corner of Our Lady Guadalupe. Okay, Our Lady Guadalupe appeared in 1521 to Juan Diego. She leads a tilma, that tilma which has converted so many people. But get this. 1921, okay? There's a Masonic government. There's the Age of the Cristeros, and they hate the image of Our Lady Guadalupe. They want to destroy that image, okay? So what happens? An anti-clerical extremist hit a bomb inside a bouquet of flowers and placed it directly beneath the tilma. He was going to try to destroy it, bomb it out, okay? The bomb explodes. The damage was severe. Marble steps were shattered. Nearby windows were blown out. And a heavy brass crucifix standing near the altar was bent into a U shape by the force of the blast. Yet something extraordinary happened. The tilma bearing the image of Our Lady Guadalupe remained completely unharmed. The protective glass covering did not shatter, and the image itself showed no burn marks, tears, or damage whatsoever. The bent crucifix, now known as the Santo Cristo del Atentado, Holy Christ of the attack, is still preserved at the basilica as a reminder of the event. The icon is documented in historical records. You can see it. Look at that image, that picture. Like the crucifix bent as if to protect the image. Christ protected his mother. Okay? So let's end with that, remembering that Christ will protect us if we are in the state of grace. And if we're not, let's rush back to him in the sacrament of confession and then spend time before him in adoration. That's how we're going to change our families and change this country. Thank you all. Keep us in prayer for Friday. We'll have a great report after the event. This is the first of many. We're going to make America Catholic. This is our mission. God bless you all. Pray for me. See you next week.